I'm Bob, I'm an alcoholic. I'm supposed to introduce the speaker. Everybody knows Brandon. Me and Brandon, so my sobriety date is February 16th, 22, I think. Anyways, I was just got out of detox and went standing by the door, and this guy's one of the first guys I run into. He comes down, I think he was in the classroom up there, comes up to me, hey, I'm Brandon, da-da-da-da-da, what do you need? Let's make sure you got books. What do you need? And taking care of me straight out of the gate. The cool thing is I've seen Brandon's heart shown so many times the exact same way. Whenever the newcomer walks in, what do you need? How can I help? Let's get this going. Let's get moving forward. Hate the fact that he had to go back out for a little bit. He helped every one of us that know him to improve our prayer lives. But then he made it back around. And I can tell you it's just an honor to know him. So everybody, here's Brandon.
Thanks, Bob. Hi, everybody. My name's Brandon. I'm an alcoholic. And let's see. Yeah, it's been a. My home group is Shepard the Hills group, and my sobriety date is December the 10th of 23. Yeah, it's been a pretty wild journey. So far, and I'm really glad I can come up here tonight and do this. It's an honor to be able to do this. So I was born in Sullivan, Missouri. It's a real small town. It's like an hour and a half west of St. Louis, and I grew up in a pretty good home. You know, both my parents were around. My mom didn't work until I was, I don't know, a teenager, I guess. But and my dad was a drunk, real bad drunk. But he was nice most of the time. You know, he was really nice to us and really friendly until he wasn't. So I kind of grew up in a really hostile, angry home, and I didn't know that it wasn't normal until I was, I guess, in high school, freshman in high school. I didn't really know, you know, that was like, it was not supposed to be that way. But so I started experimenting with, you know, and forgive me, I know this is an AA meeting, but I started experimenting with alcohol first, and it led me to other substances that ultimately led me into recovery. And I'm grateful that my alcoholism led to other drugs, you know, or I probably would have never come in here. My life, I don't think, would have gotten that bad. But let's see, I guess I was about 13, and my dad's alcoholism started getting pretty bad. He started drinking pretty heavily, and my dad choked me with a belt until I passed out when I was about 8 or 13. On the couch, he got me one night. He came home real drunk, and I was up late, and you know, I know everybody in here's got stories like that, and there's no hard feelings now between my dad and I. I've made my amends to him. He's sober now. He's sober. He's got a little more time than I do now, but so that was kind of a traumatic thing for me to go through at 13 years old, you know, and I guess I started experimenting with a lot of different things, just trying to escape the hostile crap I had to deal with at home. So fast forward a little bit into high school. I guess I was a freshman in high school. I'd experimented with about every pill bottle I could find in the medicine cabinet. I mean, every one of them. And didn't really like any of them. Some of them knocked me out. Some of them didn't do anything. So, stealing my dad's liquor out of my dad's Crown and pouring water back in it and filling it back up. He used to put marks on his Crown Royal bottles to try and catch me in this. He had a back room in one of our bathrooms, and so I just fast forward to high school. I was a freshman, and I was hanging out with all these different people. I felt like I never really fit in anywhere. I didn't really belong anywhere. So all my friends were a lot older than I was. I hung out with a lot of the guys that were seniors when I was a freshman, and got introduced to smoking pot. I think I was 14 or 15, and really liked smoking pot and did that daily until I was until I was 19. And so I just experimented with a bunch of shit, including alcohol. And alcohol was always there, and it kind of numbed everything, all the feelings that I was feeling, like my parents didn't love me, all this crazy shit that I didn't know how to deal with as a young adult, a kid. And so I'm just going to talk about it because I got introduced to methamphetamine, speed, crank, whatever you want to call it, when I was about 16, and kind of, bam, that really did it for me. That I fell in love with that, and I continued to use that on and off until somewhere in high school, I guess I was about 16, 17. My parents finally had enough sense to know something was going on with me. I was staying away for a long time and not coming home, and started not going to school, and so they took me to court, and because they started getting letters from the school saying, hey, your kid's not even showing up. I was in alternative school already at this time. I'd gotten kicked out of regular high school for chewing tobacco in class so many times. I got caught so many times. They were like, look, just go to alternative school. We can't have you in high school. So I then quit going to alternative school, and the guy that taught alternative school was a old wrestling coach of mine, and I would see him around town. And so my parents took me to court and got me emancipated when I was 17. They were starting to go through divorce. My mom and dad started going through their divorce at that time. My dad was drinking really heavily, and I was partying quite a bit, drinking a lot, and living in I think it was a 3-bedroom, a 1.5 bath apartment. And there was about 12 of us that lived in there, right in downtown Sullivan. Yeah, good times. Those are some of the good times I can remember. I had fun back then, before it was, before it got out of control, before I crossed that invisible line. And I've narrowed it down to somewhere in 2018, I crossed that line, right, to where I wasn't having fun as much anymore. I had fun every now and then, but I crossed that line, and it became a daily, all the drug use and the alcohol became a daily thing for me, to just try and numb all my feelings. And it really quit working. So let's see, I got an assault charge and a personal property damage charge, drunk, of course, and kind of got in some big trouble back in Sullivan. And I had grandparents that lived down in Florida at the time, and I was emancipated, but my dad was still helping me out because I guess he felt bad about all the shit from the past, and so he moved me down to Florida to help me run away from my problems up here in Missouri, and to live with my grandfather who was in AA for 30. He was a member of AA for 33 years, 34 before he passed away. So I guess I was that must have been in 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. I moved down there to live with my grandfather in Hernando, Florida, and I grew up in the rooms of AA when I was a kid, a little bitty kid. My dad would try and go, but it never really stuck for him, you know. So I moved down there with my grandfather to Hernando, Florida, and I started going to a club house and going to meetings with him. I was required to do 90 and 90. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but yeah, I did like 110 meetings in 90 days because my grandfather, being retired in his late 70s at the time, hit a nooners meeting and then a 6 p.m. meeting almost every day. So I hit like 120 in 90 days and didn't want to hear anything about it. Everybody in there was, you know, were my grandpa's friends. They were old, man. They were like, everybody was retired. Nobody really, there was a couple guys that worked, but I couldn't really relate. I could relate to a little bit of stuff they were talking about, but I still wasn't convinced at that time, 17 years old, that I had a problem. So, and there was nothing anybody could really tell me about myself that I thought I didn't know, you know. I thought I knew what was what, and I was going to run my life how I wanted to run it. Little did I know that wasn't the best idea. So I ended up living with my grandfather for 8 months or so down there, and enrolled in high school down there at a big, huge high school. It was kind of like culture shock for me because I grew up in a small town. There was 102 people in my graduating class, and or maybe 80 something. There wasn't that many. And then I went to this high school in Lecanto, Florida, that was one of the top 10 high schools in the nation. It was huge. And so it was kind of culture shock. And of course, who do I meet there? I took myself with me down to Florida, and the first people I meet are the stoners, you know, the potheads, and the guys partying down there in high school in Florida. So that's what I did, and I hung out with them, and you know, I guess I think I started working down there for a guy in one of the clubs, and you know, saved up some money, and then lo and behold, some friends of mine from the St. Louis area, Sullivan area, they were going to Clearwater Beach for a vacation, and they knew I was in the state of Florida at least, and they told me, they said, hey, we'll come pick you up, you can just come with us to Clearwater, party with us for a few days, you know, we'll take you we'll take you back with us if you want to escape, because poor pitiful me, I'm being held hostage with my grandfather down there in Florida, you know, I think, and I'm putting on this show like, yeah, come rescue me, you know, I need help, and they did. They came, and I told my grandfather, I finally got honest with him, told him my master plan, and he was like, look, if you know, and he gave me an envelope with the cash he had been putting back for me from my checks from doing landscaping, and he was like, look, if you want to do that, fine, but you're not coming back here. You know, you want to do what you want to do, fine, but you're not coming back here, not until you're at least a year sober. You're not going to live with me again. And so I did. I went down there, and I think I blew through a couple $1,000s anyways. At that time, you know, being 17, almost 18, I blew through quite a bit of money. To me, it was quite a bit of money, and called my grandmother, who lived in Largo, Florida, to come get me after the 5-day drinking and passing out on the beach and waking up with, I don't know if anybody in here's ever been sunburned real bad, but I used to wear crew cut socks all the time, the kind of long ones come up here. I used to wear them a lot, and I peeled them off at the beach and was just wearing tennis shoes, and I passed out drunk in this chair and woke up by this big dude who was like, hey, where's your card? You know, and we're like, oh, we left it in the room. I had blisters on my ankles and the top of my calves that were real bad blisters from being sunburned, passing out drunk, And so I moved in with my grandmother, and her brother, he's really was my great Uncle Chris, but I called him Uncle Chris. He also, my junkie Uncle Chris, lived with my grandmother for his whole life until he overdosed and died. So I moved in a few years ago. I moved in with my grandmother. This would be, I guess, 2017 would have to be, and saved up used my grandmother, for a place to live and food, and started working there with my Uncle Chris. Got introduced to more opiates that I'd never really got into in Sullivan, and just blew a bunch of money and used my grandmother for a car, and she bought me a car, and just manipulated. I've manipulated everybody in my life for as long as I can remember, being growing up in the way I did, and I guess I learned how to do that to people, unfortunately. So then my 18th birthday was coming around, and my grandmother was all mad and upset. I was going to come back. I had this grandiose plan. I'm going to come back to Sullivan and spend my 18th birthday with all my buddies and get loaded and this, that, the other, and I did. I drove from, I guess, Largo, which is right by Clearwater in Tampa and stuff. I had met a guy, and I picked up like an 8-ball of cocaine and some meth, and I had this little 04 Chevy Cavalier that my grandmother bought me, and I hopped in the car at 17 and drove, because I was emancipated. Nobody could tell me I had to stay here, I had to go there. I was an adult in the state of Missouri's eyes anyways. And I drove from Tampa to Sullivan, all the way through Illinois, back through the Smoky Mountains, stayed awake the whole time, peeing in 44-ounce cups and throwing them out the window, and because I was so spun out in my head, and I made that trip in I think it was 15 hours and 40 some odd minutes. Drove straight the whole way. I stopped once for gas in Tennessee. Yeah. And so I got back to little old Sullivan, and this is all before I didn't know, I didn't know I had this. Everybody around me was telling me, hey, you're going to wind up in prison, you're going to wind up dead, you need to stop doing what you're doing, and I just brushed it off and was like, there's no way, I'm going to be fine. Like, I got this. I didn't have it, and so I spent my 18th birthday back in Sullivan. I partied. I spent all the money I had, partied, and drank a lot, and got back. Somehow coerced my dad into giving me he had a 2000 Suburban, maybe it was an 01, full-size Suburban. I think it was 2000 because it still had the push button. And so I lived in that thing and partied, and all these promises of I'll stop getting high and drinking, and I'll straighten up and fly right, and it just it didn't happen. So I met a girl, and I was already out of high school at this time. I went somewhere along there. I got my GED, my high set. I went in and I took it and passed it. Thank God, So I met this girl at a party, and of course, she was kind of a big drinker, and so we moved in. My mom and dad are still in the middle of getting this divorce. My dad's drinking very, very heavily at this time, and we move in out at this little trailer home out at Winkle Ford in Leslie, Missouri. A little bitty town called Leslie. It's got like 50 people in it. It's that small. And I'm staying out there. I'm partying a lot. I get a job framing houses up in St. Louis, and just my whole deal was I came back. I'm still started doing the meth again. I'm dating this chick. I moved her in with me out of my dad's house at 18 years old, and I'm framing houses, and my whole deal was I could get an 8 ball of speed and on Thursday, and I could do some on Thursday night, stay up all night Thursday night, go to work Friday morning, work all day Friday, still high, stay up all night Friday night, and into Saturday, and then take it easy and relax, and drink until I passed out, administer some sedatives like it talks about in the book. That was me at 18 years old, and I did that for as long as I could until it just didn't work anymore. It just wasn't enough, and I ended up wrecking a car. That Cavalier that my grandmother bought me. Didn't do anything about it. When I got back to Missouri, I didn't renew the tags. I didn't keep insurance on it. I didn't anything, And so I fell asleep behind the wheel. And one day, I don't know what day it was of the week, but I fell asleep behind the wheel. Was driving way too fast. Was loaded. Wasn't drunk, but I was on other substances, and when I woke up in the hospital in St. Louis, they had life-flighted me, and I wrecked this. They life-flighted me, and they told me when I woke up, I pulled because I was still kind of coming down off the drugs and shit. They had me on medically induced coma, Ativan, medically induced coma for 4 days. And when I came to, I sat up in the bed, and I pulled the wires off my chest, and I pulled the IV out of my arm, and I said, "Where's my shit? Where's my effing dope at?" And I went to swing my legs off the bed and stand up, and my legs were like cooked spaghetti noodles. My brain didn't tell the legs what to do. The brain just, it wasn't there. I forgot how to walk. So 4 or 5 nurses came in. My dad's in there, and he's holding a cell phone in front of my face, and both my eyes were black, and I got stitched up here, and I got 28 staples over here, and this leg was bandaged all the way down. It was like a straight, I couldn't bend this leg, but all I was worried about was my dope, my shit, and the nurses came in. They said, "Look, Mr. Pittman, we don't think you understand. You're lucky to even be here. We don't know why you're here, but you hit a cedar tree going approximately 78 miles an hour to a dead stop, and you weren't wearing a seatbelt, and there were no airbags in your car. The car didn't even have any airbags. Somebody took them out." So I'd suffered a TBI, traumatic brain injury. That's why I didn't remember how to walk, and I still ignored that sign, that sign from who I know now was my God, because I wear a cross necklace, and I've had a cross necklace for quite a few years, but I had one in that car on the rear view mirror, and when my dad went to go look at it in the impound lot, because it was done, the whole engine was up in the passenger seat. He took pictures of the car, and the mirror was on the windshield, was on the hood. The necklace was still there on the hood at the salvage at the scrapyard, and I still ignored that sign, and thought that I had it all under control, and I was just going to keep doing what Brandon wanted to do, and so I did for a while. It took me a while to get back to really partying, and then so that happened, and the truth came out, right, to my girlfriend at the time, who I was hiding all this speed use from. She didn't know. I think she kind of had an idea, but she didn't want to believe it, and so that finally came out that, hey, I've been getting loaded this whole time we've been together, and everybody was pretty upset, but I really didn't, at that time, I really didn't care, what anybody felt or thought. I only thought I was hurting myself still at this time at 18. So it got a little worse from there. I ended up during that wreck, thank God that I picked up a felony drug possession charge. a small one, a Class D felony at 18 years old. So then I might have still been, I don't know, I think I was 18. But it took them 11 months to charge me. Nothing ever came up. They got, the state of Missouri got me for 8 traffic violations, including a personal property damage. They hit me with a no seatbelt ticket. They hit me with an MVI, minor visibly intoxicated, because they couldn't test. Blood alcohol was 0, but they charged me with an MVI anyways, because I was so twisted off during that wreck. I guess I was talking to him with my scalp hanging open. I don't remember. So, but all these traffic tickets, and then my dad kicks me out, rightfully so, because I was still doing the same shit and expecting a different outcome. Never really held down a job, did a bunch of favors for people, collected money for some people, and just got by, doing a little, selling this or selling that, and just getting by, and just running errands for people. And finally started getting some court dates, and then I guess it was 4 months after they had finally charged me with everything, that I was living in I had a 99 Mazda Protege. I moved out of my dad's house, tried going to my mom. My mom was not going to let me manipulate her for the first time in my life. My mom was done. I was in such rough shape that she didn't want anything to do with me. I don't blame her. And so I'm living in this car, and I tried sobering up, and I did. I got off of, I think I was sober off everything. When they tested me in the hospital, I was clean. They tested my urine and the blood because they couldn't believe it. But I was sober, I was dried out, and because I was still with this chick and telling her I'll do better, I'll keep going to my court dates, I'll stay out of jail. I'm living in this car that's not licensed, not registered, not nothing. The last time it was registered was in my dad's name. And I dried out, wasn't really working a program or anything, just dried out, on just white knuckling it, really white knuckling it, because I'm living in this car. And I tried killing myself on I-44 in that car, and it didn't work. I over 100 miles an hour, wrecked it on purpose, hit the guardrails. For those of you that don't know, the wires in between the highway, they just whip you right back up on the highway. They don't, just in case you didn't know, that's what they're meant to do. They just throw you right back up on the highway. So nobody else was injured or involved or anything. And there was a guy that saw me do it, and he stopped and he called the cops, of course. And this is one of the only times I was honest with anybody ever in my life. The EMT that showed up to the scene, because I crawled out of the car. It was ruined, twisted up the unibody. It was in bad shape. And but the EMT was so beautiful that I was like, you know what? I'll just be honest. Why not? Because I wasn't showing any emotion or anything. I was just like, it is what it is. Whatever. And she asked me, did you hit your head? Did you this? Did you that? No. And I told her what had happened. Big mistake. Yeah. Big mistake. Yeah, so they took me to the hospital, and they were like, yeah, you ain't going anywhere. I tried leaving the emergency room, and they were like, no, you're not going anywhere, dude. Like, that's when they test me and everything. And so I got to spend 10 days in a mental hospital called Centerpoint Hospital up in St. Charles, Missouri. And they put me in a unit with people that were talking to the walls and stuff, like people that were going to be there for the rest of their lives, for real. And it's pretty wild. And I swore, when I got out, and they drugged me up with all kinds of shit, and I swore when I got out I'll walk the path. Just please let me move back in with you. I'll stay sober. I'll go to my court dates. I'll get a job even. And I did for about a week. I did all right. And I started hanging around my old buddies. And one thing led to another, and I'm 18 at this time. I start missing court dates. No car, because I've wrecked both of them. My dad took back the one SUV, the Suburban, and started missing court dates. Parents can't, I'm blaming everybody except for myself. I'm looking at everybody except for myself and the bottle and the drugs, and I'm blaming everybody I can for my problems. And started missing court dates, started having to spend time in jail, and didn't do me any good, because I could manipulate the judge into let me out, OR'ing me. He OR'd me on my own recognizance. He let me out. The first time I went to jail, I spent 10 days in jail, and I learned how to play spades, and he let me right out, as soon as I saw him. And so I figured, well, if this is as bad as it's going to get, somebody taught me how to get along in jail. Like, I was okay when I went to jail. I got really lucky. So that went back, and that happened for quite a while, until I was living in a buddy of mine's car, pretty rough shape, drinking, and doing everything else I could get my hands on at this time. And finally, it had got bad enough. I don't know if I want to call it. I don't know if I'm going to call it a spiritual experience, but I had a moment of clarity. Let me just say that I had ate some mushrooms and had a moment of clarity, and I did, seriously, and I walked like 8 miles, because I was living way out of town, out in the woods in this car, and I walked like 8 miles to my dad's house, and I told him, I said, hey, I need help. I saw my life and what it could be like and what it was going to be like if I kept doing the same thing I was doing. And so he got me help, and he drove me up to, this would be early in 2019 now at this point, and it was cold too. It was early in 2019. I went to a place called Boonville. I went to a place called Valley Hope. It's in Boonville, Missouri, is where it's at. And this 28-day program called Valley Hope, and my plan was to just, at 19 years old, I got all the phone numbers wrote down that I need to have wrote down for all my buddies in case I got to have somebody extract me. And I just figured I'd take a 28-day tolerance break, And somebody from this area had come up there to Valley Hope in Boonville and started reading stuff. And I was kind of familiar with the Big Book of AA, because my grandfather he preached it, and he talked about it. He loved the 12 and 12. They called him page 92 Charlie. It was page 92 in the 12 and 12. But so I was kind of familiar with the book, and this guy came up to Boonville to that program I was in, and he started talking about Branson, Missouri. And this is a program where they only let you have your cell phone for an hour a day. It was really cool. All the food was catered in. Everybody was really nice. You sat through a lot of classes, but it was pretty relaxed, And they, at that time, they even told me, they said, hey, your liver is off a few numbers. You need to not be doing what you've been doing. Your liver's off. You can heal it if you just stay right from here on out. Anyways, so that guy came up there, started talking about the book, and he drew this cycle up on this whiteboard, and said it was a cycle of addiction. And he started explaining his life in it, and I thought, well, shit, this dude's in rough shape. This dude's done a lot worse than I've ever even thought about doing. And so I still kind of had that, I'm terminally unique. I'm different from everybody. I don't have this alcoholism or drug addiction. And but he's talked Branson up pretty good, and I was like, man, what's it take really? Because the money's not a problem. Like, I can talk anybody into the money for the program. Like, the money's not a problem. And so I ended up coming up here to CORE in Branson in 2019. After I left that 28-day treatment, my dad picked me up in Boonville with the little bit of shit I had in the back of his Suburban, and drove me straight from Boonville straight here. I never went back to Sullivan. That wasn't even I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to be able to get away. And on the way here to Branson, I almost hopped out on 65 because I was scared. I had all this fear inside of what this was going to be like. I didn't know about the sober living thing, but I knew it was men and women. So I was like, okay, I'll be okay. As long as there's some ladies there, I'll be fine. My morals, my morals and my ambitions were not in the right place. So I came up here in 2019, and I almost hopping out on 65. My dad told me, I guess this was the Yukon XL, because he had already wrecked the Suburban, drunk, didn't get caught for it, but he totaled that. So it was a Yukon XL is what it was, and I was threatening to hop out. I almost did hop out on 65, and he told me, he said, look, if you just stay sober for a year, I'll give you this truck. Just stay sober for a year. Well, shit, anybody can stay sober for a year for a truck. Anybody, So I did. I stayed in Corps I didn't even make it quite a year in Corps, but I told him, the master manipulator here, it's like, well, my 28 days in Boonville, man, plus the time I've been at Corps, come on, dude, it's been a year, it's been a year. And it really had been a year. So he gave me and then COVID hit, and we got some of that stimulus money. Of course, I couldn't have collected unemployment because I'd never worked enough in my life up until then. Never. They laughed at me when I tried to collect unemployment. They were like, no, are you kidding? You haven't worked enough ever to even think about collecting unemployment. What have you been doing? So COVID hit late in I guess it was May of 2019. I got to Corps, and then I left when COVID started getting pretty bad. Went back, of course. My whole plan was to stay sober, because I'm still sober at this time. Been sober a little over a year. Got a brand new truck, 18,000 miles on it. Reman engine put in it. I'll take it down to Florida. I'll live with my grandpa. I'll do okay. And that didn't happen. I stopped. See, I was already restless, irritable, and discontent up here, living at Corps with all the BS going on with COVID, and all these guys are collecting unemployment, and I'm just having to work still. So I was not happy, and I stopped off in Sullivan, saw some buddies of mine, got loaded. I don't think I even stayed the night. I just stayed a couple hours, got loaded, hit the road, drove all the way down to Florida, and got to my grandfather's house. And finally, for one of the first times in my life, was honest with my grandfather. I stayed there for maybe a couple weeks and was honest with my grandfather and told him, I said, hey, look, I was 20 at this time, I wasn't even 21. So I told him, and I'm 26 now, so it's been a few years. I finally told him, I said, look, I'm not ready to get sober. I don't want to get sober, and I'm going back to Missouri. I'm just not ready. And he was like, okay. And I'm 20 at this time. I was asking all these people to get me alcohol on the way down there. Nobody would do it at any of these gas stations in Illinois, Georgia, all these states I hit to try and get people to buy me a bottle of booze, because I figured that would be the easiest to get my hands on. No, it wasn't. But my grandfather had all these cans of air duster in his garage. For some reason, he had like 6 cans. I'm like, this old man's got 6 cans of air duster. Little does he know, I can suck this shit down and get a head buzz. So I did while I was driving that car, that Yukon XL with 18,000 miles on it. Less than a month after I titled it in my name and all that stuff, I wrecked it in the state of Florida, hit a tree, totaled it out, and did what any good addict alcoholic would do when I went to the hospital. Yeah, I hopped out. There was already somebody there on the side of the road that was on, and I was like, don't call him, and he was already on the phone with the cops. So took an ambulance ride. I had the purple mark from the seatbelt for like a week. Yeah, I passed out again and hit a tree. But right before I passed out, I thought, you know what? I better put my seatbelt on. So maybe that was a sign. I don't know. Anyways, totaled that car out. Just a bad deal, and they wrote me a ticket. The cop did. That came in there to the hospital after they had checked me for internal bleeding, put me through all that good stuff, and he wrote me a ticket for like a careless and imprudent or something, or failure to drive on the right side of the road. I did what anybody would do, and I was like, okay, crumpled it up and threw it away. Just went on about my business. Come back to Missouri, and I ended up moving in with my grandmother again, my junkie Uncle Chris, and this time I upgraded. So now I've learned how to mainline opiates into my system. Now I've graduated with Uncle Chris because I'm 20. You know, it's time, dude. I want to get loaded the way you're getting loaded. Why are you holding out on me? So, of course, he showed me how, and wasn't long before I started realizing all these, I thought were rumors for a long time, people getting sick from opiate withdrawal. I thought everybody was just full of shit because speed was more my thing, and I just didn't really believe it, you know. Yeah, it's real. It is definitely real, and it sucks, and it hurts bad. And I called my dad. This is after a few months living with Grandma and Uncle Chris. Dilaudid, and yeah, the K8s, and all kinds of stuff my Uncle Chris was doing, and I was doing. So I called my dad one day when I'd had enough, and I'm crying, and I'm shaking, and I'm going through withdrawals, and I'm getting sick. Please give me a plane ticket. Give me back. I need help. So he did, and I came back, and I guess I might have been close to 21 now. Maybe I was 21. I don't know. But I came back, and now I'm still 20. It doesn't matter. I came back with this promise that I would do right. I'll get a job. I'll change my ways. Didn't happen. I came back and partied some more. Finally got miserable enough again after I guess this would be my second or third attempt at suicide, living at my mom's house because my mom let me move in with her. I went to grab my sister had a pink Rossi 22 up on the shelf in my mom's garage, and I went to because I had a pocket full of Stinger 22 shells that I found. And I'd been up for a few days, and I was drinking the American Honey Wild Turkeys at the time, drinking a lot of honeys, and I was going to end it, and I grabbed it, and somebody took the bolt out of it. There was no bolt in it, so I couldn't do anything. And I'm cussing God this morning, that morning in Sullivan, and my mom lives in a nice subdivision by the middle school in Sullivan, and I'm out there just as the sun's coming up, and I'm cussing this God that I don't know and I don't believe in. Anyways, long story short, a guy called me like 3 hours after that, and it was a guy from this area, and he told me to come back up here, and he told me about another program. So I came back up here February the 8th of 2021. It's February the 8th of 21. That was my sobriety date, and that was the day that was Super Bowl Sunday. My dad was pissed because he brought me back up here, and he was pissed he missed the Super Bowl. So I missed the Super Bowl too. I passed out. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers actually beat the Chiefs that year at the Super Bowl. I'm glad I missed it. Anyways, so that was my original sobriety date, and I did work the steps, and I had started to get a change in my way of thinking. You know, I wasn't such an angry person. I started to see myself for who I really was through working the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I guess I was sober for a couple years and some change from February the 8th of 21 up until May of 23, maybe June of 2023. I moved out in March of 2023, left the sober living program I was in with the resentment towards the guy that told me, I don't think you're ready, and it hurt my feelings, pissed me off. So I left with that resentment, and it wasn't long. It was only about 3 months until I was lonely. I was still pissed about that, holding on to that resentment, and I ended up going back to Sullivan, and I smoked a joint with my mom, which I knew. And everybody in my family knows I'm not that guy. I just can't do just one. I can't have one drink. I can't have one joint. I can't have shit. I can't have anything. It's just not, I'm a real alcoholic, a real addict. I just can't do it. It just doesn't sit right with me. I've tried. And the whole drive back up here, all I was thinking about was getting loaded drinking and going to the bar and, all the stuff that comes along with that. And it wasn't long before it got pretty miserable for me. Maybe, 4 or 5 months, Bob? If that, yeah, something like that. And I had pulled all the stuff, just like it says in the book, all the stuff I'd worked hard for, or the life I built up for myself, pulled it right down on top of my head. Drinking and getting loaded. And I finally got miserable enough again. I think I had sufficient amount of misery this time. Finally. Hopefully for today, that I went down. I couldn't go anywhere here. I felt like I needed to get away, so I called them my last resort, my last chance. I called just out of curiosity. I was on my dad's insurance until September the 5th of this year. So I called the insurance company, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll get you into one more rehab. You get one more. That's it. That's the last one we'll pay for. We'll get you in wherever you want to go." So I went to Boca Raton, Florida. I went back down to Florida because why not be somewhere where it's warm in September? This would be of 23, September of 23. Bob took me to the airport. Actually, he wanted proof though. First, he wanted proof that hey, you really got you really got a ticket? Are you really going? Is this legit? I don't blame him. I don't blame you. So I went down there and I was there for 60 days in a place called Boca Cove Detox Facility, and I was still on felony probation here in Missouri. And I told my PO, I said, me still running the show, look, I'll never come back. You're not going to come get me for the drug possession charge I had from when I was a teenager. Thank God, I didn't pick up any new charges, didn't kill anybody, didn't add to the population since then. So I'm doing, it's doing all right by some miracle. And he told me, my PO said, look, come back to Missouri, check into Corps as soon as you get back, the day you get back, and we won't violate you and we're not going to send you to prison to do your 120 shock treatment. He said, we'll give you this is it. We'll give you one more chance, but you have to stay at Corps for at least a year. You have to complete it. This is your one chance. So I did it. I came back. I checked into Corps in November of 23, and through living there and knowing the program and trusting that the program and trying to forget what I thought I knew about the 12-step program of AA, and honestly working the 12 steps with somebody that has had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I got real honest and thorough on my 4th step, and I put all that shit down on paper that I swore I was taking to the grave. All the crazy, messed up shit that I was going to take to the grave with me. I didn't want anybody to ever know about. I put all that shit down on paper, and I shared it with this guy, and he was like, and it went good. Didn't go how I expected it would go, but it went good. All that weight was lifted off me finally, and I continued to work through the rest of the program to the best of my ability. And somewhere along that time I was in Corps, I've had these little moments of, little spiritual experiences or I don't know what to call them. I guess psychic changes, spiritual experiences. My way of thinking changed. I kept visiting the other program, and people were telling me, "Hey, you've changed. You've changed. You're doing good. You've changed." And I didn't know. I really didn't see it, but apparently I did. And I'm just so grateful to be here. And I've still got a lot of character defects and shit that I still need to work on. I still get angry. I still get upset when shit doesn't go my way. I got fired from my job this morning. My job I've had for a year and a half. Great job. Because I said something I shouldn't have said to somebody. It happens. I'm human. But I don't have to drink or get loaded today over being fired, because I know a better way. Reaching out to people, working with others. There's all kinds of these tools I've been taught through the 12-step program of AA in the book. I don't have a book up here, but if I did, it'd be here. So I'm just grateful to be sober today, and I couldn't have done it without everybody in these rooms, you know, and yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I'm glad to be here today. Oh yeah, I finished all the probation and shit. I made sure I didn't leave Core until I finished that shit, because I was scared, still running on fear, you know. So I'm just whatnot. Thank you, and it's been an honor, and thanks for having me. So yeah, that's it.